Welcome back to the Rise with Anita podcast, or welcome if you're new here. This is a space where ambition meets embodiment, where soul meets strategy, and where we don't just talk about transformation, we actually experience it. And today's conversation feels like a powerful alignment because I'm sitting down with a woman whose work has quite literally shaped the way millions of people understand manifestation, energy, and the spaces we live in. She is the essence and the queen of Feng Shui, Marie Diamond. She's a global transformational leader, an energy master featured in The Secret, a teacher of the law of attraction, and someone who has spent decades guiding people back into alignment, not just within themselves, but within their environments. Her work bridges intuition and science, combining feng shui, quantum principles, and deep energetic awareness to help people create success, love, health, and true harmony in their lives. But what is most powerful about her story is that this path didn't just begin with success. It began with a near death experience at 15, a moment that completely shifted her awareness and ultimately shaped the mission she carries today to impact hundreds of millions of people across the world. And while she's worked with visionaries and incredible leaders, creators, and today isn't just about the titles or who she's worked with, it's about the energy behind it. It's about how we actually align with the life we want. So before we go any further, I want to invite both the listeners and Marie to just take a moment to arrive here with me. So if you're able to do so, please place your feet on the ground, soften your shoulders, release any tension that might be in your jaw, and just take a moment of awareness. Where are you right now? And so let's take a breath together. Inhaling slowly through your nose for 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And exhale slowly through your mouth for 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And this is just a reminder, there's nothing you need to fix, nothing you need to rush, just allowing here to be present in this very moment. So Marie, welcome. I'm so honored and grateful to have you here.
Thank you so much, Anita. And I loved the bio you spoke about. I'm like, wow, so beautifully written. I'm impressed.
Thank you. Well, I'm just telling you about you, essentially. So I always start off the podcast with a little bit of a different question, which is what is bringing you joy in this current season?
In the current season, I mean, it is spring, so I love being in nature, just seeing the flowers pop and nature rejuvenate. That's one thing I love. For me, it's always being with my family, with my husband for 36 years, with my children. Like now, we just had barbecue yesterday evening because it was warm already outside. Then seeing my two crazy French bulldogs running around in the garden and playing. And what brings me joy is every day my work, actually, what I do for the world or in the world. Just, every person I'm connecting with, every podcast I'm doing, just sharing my knowledge and my wisdom, that just gives me an ongoing joy.
Beautiful answer. And as much as we all say, like, you shouldn't be affected by your external environment, when it is nice and warm and the skies are beautiful, it does something to the mood. So I totally can relate. So I would love to start here, not from what you've built, but the moment that changed everything for you. You had a near death experience at 15. Can you take us back to that moment and what you felt, not just what happened?
Yeah. So I was 15. I'm born in Belgium. So in Belgium, every high school student takes the bike to go to school and back. And at lunchtime, as we were close to the school, we would actually drive back and forth to have lunch at home. And I was on my way back, and I was run over by a truck. I was catapulted. I felt on my face, on my head, and I I don't remember from that moment on till I was out of my body. So apparently the ambulance came. They couldn't revive me. They put the fabric over me. Thank God there was one woman that passed by. It was a teacher from my school that drove quickly to my mom. It was like my mom and dad lived around the corner from where the accident happened. So she was like, you need to go. And my mom already said to my father, something happened to Marie. And she already had stopped the stove. And she already had her coat on. She was like, something has happened. Because I was too late. I was 15 minutes too late. Because that happened all in this 15 minutes. And so she came to the ambulance. She jumped into the ambulance as it was going to drove off. And she started screaming, please try again, try again. At that moment, I was hanging over my body, like in the corner of the ambulance, seeing my mom there. And I'm really consciously thinking, that was like the first conscious thought I had after that accident was, what is my mom doing here? Like, and I saw my body and I saw this ambulance guy trying to revive me. And the second thought I had was, oh my God, he's so cute. This ambulance guy had curly blonde hair, blue eyes. I mean, I was 15. I had a crush on him. I had a beyond the depth crush on him, right? And that's the moment, that was my last thought on earth level. And then I just felt my energy going to like all dimensions. Like if you would take an airplane and you would go through clouds, and then you will hit, the blue sky or the dark sky, depending if it's dark, day or night. But I was like going through all this, and I never flown at that time in my life, so I did not know the experience of a flight going into the sky. But later on, I kind of compared it with it, and I came in a place of light, and I just felt like everything was peace, everything was calm, and there were like 9 beings of light, if you call it angels or masters, whatever it is for you. But I know I was in a place of greatness, in place of God's energy. And I remember looking at myself and I was like, I was all in white. I'm like, I was not wearing white. I was like, I was wearing blue because that was my school uniform, right? And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, and there was this telepathic connection, especially with the being in the middle, that said you have to go back because you need to enlighten more than 500 million people. And it was like a thought that was placed in my brain. I don't know if it's my brain. It was probably my consciousness, right? There was no physical brain anymore. And I was like, okay. And it was like, for me, it was like, yeah, it's what I'm doing. It was not a feeling of upsetment or anger, it was just a feeling of acceptance. And that's the last thing I do remember. I don't remember coming back in my body. And I remember waking up a couple of days later. My mom was on my side, and they were like checking out my body. They were putting me through a scan, and I remember feeling the air around me, and later on I felt the sheets of, I was like on something, they had put sheets on me. I felt the sheets. I'm like, my God, this is amazing. I can feel sheets, right? So like the crispy cotton sheets from a hospital. But I couldn't see very well because I have glasses on normally and they were broken. So I was like, I have very bad eyesight. And I was like, Mom, I started telling her like, where am I? And she's in the hospital and said, but we're just in the ambulance, you and I. She's like, well, how do you know I was in the ambulance? So I described her all the details of the ambulance, the inside and so on. The cute guy, you know. And so she's like, but you cannot remember that because you were flatlined at that time. Yeah. And so then I knew there was something very special that happened. But what happened after that was, I think, for me, even more special, was that from the accident, as I was catapulted somehow on all gravel, my whole face, my skin was all taken off. Like they were talking about, they had to work with, plastic surgery, taking skin from my thighs to put it on my face because it was like everything was gone. It was all raw meat. And I remember my mom telling me that. I said, "Oh, I need a mirror." And she's like, "You cannot look at yourself." I said, "Mom, I need a mirror." And I looked at it, and I still remember that. I'm like, "Whoa, that doesn't good." And she was like, "We were going to plastic surgery," and I said very clearly, "Mom, you're not doing that. You're not giving consent because I couldn't. I was a minor, right? So she had to sign off on it, and I said, I'm going to heal myself." And these words came out of me. And then, to be honest, Anita, I'm Catholic. You don't heal yourself. Jesus heals you, saints heal you, God heals you, Mary heals you, but never yourself, right? And it was very clear. And I started feeling this energy in my hands, what people would later on perhaps call Reiki, right? Or Chi or whatever. But I saw literally this energy in my hands, and I started putting my face, my hands on my face. And literally, a few weeks later, I went back to school and had complete healed face. And at that time, I thought it was kind of a normal thing, but it was not normal if I look back at it. And still today, people say like, "Wow, my God, you have such a radiant skin." I'm 63 and I look younger than most people. I'm 63 and I always say, "Well, my face is 15 years younger."
Beautiful.
So that's actually my experience. But what after that happened was I was not in a good place. I lost my short-term memory, a whole bunch of my long-term memory. So from being a straight A student, I became a straight F student. And I literally could not memorize things anymore. And so I became quite oppressed after that. And that's when I started really connecting more with meditation, with energy. And if I would not have done meditation at that time, that would have been difficult. And I also connect with a mentor of mine that said, I asked him, like, why did that happen to me? And he said, you just had bad feng shui. And so this is when the first time the word feng shui came in my life. And I changed the rooms. I repainted it in colors I loved, did hang other images up, and my life, I started healing faster. I mean, it still took a couple of years to get through all this. But when I look back, I felt, I was really depressed, and then I started feeling more joy. Like you asking about joy, I was finding joy again. My studies started improving. I started having friends, you know. But I also, from that day on, I would have this one prayer in the morning. I am here to enlighten more than 500 million people. God, universe, show me how. And that was my big request every morning. And that unfolded somehow, right, to where I am now.
Wow. So basically, you got the download of your purpose at, at
I
the
did.
big
I always
four.
say to people, you don't need to do this to get your purpose, though.
Absolutely not. But wow, to be 15 and already know what you were basically coming to this planet for is incredible. And let's just be honest, the goal of impacting 500 million people is not a small feat in itself. Not a small vision by any means. So,
It's Yeah, and it was so funny because at that time I even calculated because I was a math, I loved math. Was I calculated if I would impact one person a day and I would turn 80, I would turn 90, I would turn 100. I still did not get to 500 million, not even a million, right? And so I was like, I don't know how that's going to happen at all. Um, but I just kept holding the space for that purpose. And now, just with everything I have done, parts of being in movies and books and the reach, we have done more than 500 million people. Yeah,
that's incredible. But
yeah,
at that point, when you had that vision and you started meditating on it, so you started keeping that in mind from when you were 15, 16, very
yeah.
young, daily. So I guess the question for me is how obviously you just went into the aspects of like calculating how much it would be. What did your early visualizations of that impact look like? Did you have an idea of what the way was going to be in terms of like feng shui being the vehicle, for example.
I had no idea at that point. So I do remember when I then, the first thing I was trying to be is be more of service through the church, through the community, through scouts, being part of the scouts and being leader, being more volunteering for certain organizations. So I was not the typical teenager in that sense, right? I was just really trying to find a way to give back because I did not know the word enlightenment, right? There's not a word that is available in the Catholic Church, right?
No.
So for me, it was like bringing light, yeah, helping people, like making a difference in people's life. So I tried to do as much as I could. And there could be a smile to somebody, just like somebody fell, I helped them up, whatever I could. That like my whole being became of service. Yeah, that's kind of what I focused on. And then when I had to make a decision at 18 to take a college degree, I was like very confused. Like, what do I do? Right? So I could become a doctor, but to be honest, I didn't want to study that long. My brain was not in such a good space to study that long. They already told me like you can't even get a college degree because your brain is not good enough to study. But I was like, I need to do something. And then I thought like, what if I do psychology? That could be helpful. And it kept coming to me that I need to become a lawyer. And
Hmm.
that's actually what I did. I studied law degree and did also criminology because I want to understand, I know there was a lot of psychology and psychiatry in that study. So I thought like that would be a good combination. So I became an international criminal lawyer. And I was like, well, if I could get into organizations like not companies. I was not focusing on companies, but like governments or United Nations or European Union, then I could reach millions of people, yeah, by guiding the government, yeah. So
Hmm.
that's actually what I did. I became a lawyer in the government and making law. Like literally, that was my work was creating law for that department and then making sure I was adjusted to the European law. And so my idea at that time was perhaps this is how I'm going to reach millions of people because I could not see that me as a human being, you know, I mean, I did not know there was the self-help world. There one day were going to be YouTubes and films and apps, and podcasts. I mean, I had no idea, right? So I just started. And I think a lot of people have big dreams, but they think they are going they have to go somewhere to make that happen. But I always say start where you are. Yeah, literally, I that's what I did. Yeah, and and every step unfolded. And then after I was 15, one of the other things that was really through that experience, my intuition became very strong. And because I was also meditating every day for at least an hour. So my channel, my connection became stronger. And so when I was studying law, I was also, doing energy readings for the students, and intuition readings, and because I did not have any money, my parents were really not so wealthy, and so I would do that for the students, and they would give me tickets to, a dance evening or to a concert. So they paid me this way. I didn't ask money for it. And this is how, during my studies, I was actually also increasing my connection with what I call divine law instead of physical law, human law. And and then when I was already being a lawyer, when I was 27, I started having people coming towards me to do energy reading, to do energy clearings and healings. And so that kind of started like at the same time. But I never thought I would ever do this professionally because I did not know anybody that did this professionally. That was like part of my service again. Yeah.
Beautiful. And I love that even then, when we think about it, the timing wise. you're going through this very practical career. And at the end, you're still finding this way of having spiritual fulfillment where you're tapped in and you're using your gifts to serve.
Yeah.
And I guess at that time, there was no way you could have even imagined marrying the two because it was
Oh,
just so vastly different. So
it
vastly
was
different.
so vastly different, right? And I remember when I was 30, I already had like really gotten to a lot of promotions in my field. And I was really on top level already because I also used my intuition in the work I was doing as a lawyer, right? And I got things done faster than anybody else, right? And I had already good feng shui because I knew how to apply some of the feng shui. And the interesting part was that I got pregnant and I stayed home during the pregnancy because of health reasons. And I was like, I knew I had to make a decision. Do I go back to being a lawyer or do I go more that other direction? But I did not know in which form that would be because, you know, you have studied for like 6 years and
Yeah.
then you only practice for 5 years and then stopping that career would be really strange. The good thing was that the government at that time wanted me to be closer to the headquarters of the department, and I couldn't come closer for my husband's career. So they actually paid me out for 1 year. Like, and so I was like, okay, have a year to think about what I want. So I took care of my son. And in meditations, I kept hearing that I needed to start a center, like a wellness center, something like this. Now, that didn't exist really at that time in my country, but I was like, let me give it a try. So I set this up, and my husband was like, yeah, we should do that, try it at least, feel, My husband is very aligned with, spiritual life, and he meditates too, and so on. And so the interesting part was, I I started doing a speaking engagement, right? I was like putting some flyers out to some people, like, I'm going to speak about meditation. Because I felt like that was the only thing I could really speak about because I was doing it for 15 years. Yeah. So I had a certain practice. And I remember nobody showed up. Like, not even my husband didn't come. He had an excuse. My mom didn't come. Another excuse. And I remember there were 40 chairs there. And I was like, you know what? I can just give up right now. Or I can imagine that one day on these chairs there will be 500 million people. And I literally, for 2 hours, was teaching to 500 million souls that one day would come and know about me. And so I was like, after 2 hours, like, oh, that was a really good class, right? There was nobody there. I mean, I would say the angels were there, perhaps, or their souls were there, but there was nobody physically. And I did another session 2 weeks later. Two people showed up. And before 6 months were over, there were 3,000 people in the room. Yeah. And so I knew I was on the right track by then, right? Because people just, through referral, yeah, that one person spoke about and spoke about. I mean, I didn't do any marketing. I still don't do a lot of marketing. I don't believe too much in that. I feel like when people experience something, they will continue sharing it. And and that's, how things evolved. But of course, I was still in Belgium. So even if I had, after 5, 6 years, I had like, 20,000 people on my list. It still didn't get to 500 million
500.
people, right? So at that time, I was like, Belgium is too small. And I decided to move to America. And I immigrated to America at that time, 2001. And yeah, in 2000, I remember making a vision board. By that time, I knew feng shui, I knew vision boards. So I put on my vision board, I'm going to be in a movie seen by millions of people that will transform the world. Little post-it note on my vision board. And I put a fake Oscar out, right, in my success direction. It's a feng shui thing. And like in 2005, I was in The Secret. I was totally unknown if you compare with all the people that were in the movie. I had already sold millions of books. But what happened is I started being their mentor. So people like Jack Canfield, John Gray, Bob Proctor, Marion Williamson, they were all became my clients. Like they were like connecting with me through, mutual connections, and they wanted to do clearing with them, meditation, feng shui. And so I became their mentor. And because of that, they asked me to be in their masterminds. And that is where I was filmed for The Secret. I was the most unknown person publicly from everybody in The Secret. But The Secret has reached more than 500 million people. So check, we're done it.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I just want to take a moment because a lot of the women who listen here are entrepreneurs. They might be firstly in that journey. And I've experienced that same thing where it's like you think you're putting on an event together and you have 10 people signed up and like two show up and it takes an ego hit if you're not prepared for it. But
Yes.
what I love is the way that you're like, no, I'm gonna walk through this entire presentation like I planned, and there's 500 million souls meditating and going to be impacted by this same talk, so we're gonna run through it.
Yeah.
And so it really gives us like the power of visualization. And then
Yeah.
just to go full circle into The Secret, which I don't know how you did that because the next question I was going to ask you about was literally The Secret. But um it's incredible when you think about manifestation and all the weavings of it. I know that when for me I was about maybe 12, 13, 14, and my mom was like, guess what, she had came home with the DVD and she
Oh
was like,
yeah.
this is going to change our lives. And I was like, is it now? And she was like, you have to be open. Just a friend of mine had heard it and she goes, you need to watch this movie. So she brought home the DVD and she was like, are you open to watching it? And I was like, well, you're a single mom, all I see is financial struggle. Yes, let's go. And so it was the first time I had this awareness of
Hmm.
anything law of attraction, because up until that point, scarcity,
Yes.
limitation, all the things that come with what people would associate a single mom's child being with. And so I was just like, I have this openness because my question now is, what can I do differently?
Yes.
And so I'm curious for you, how did you actually personally discover the law of attraction and start to implement it? Which it sounds like a lot of it just kind of naturally fell in your lap.
Well, it's very interesting. For me, the first time I was about 7 years old, when I connected already with what we would call a spiritual master. And that's the first time I knew a little bit about visualization because I was living in a family that, was not a happy family. My father was a World War II veteran with a lot of PTSD, a lot of physical and emotional mental violence, I grew up with. And so my dream was to have a happy family, right? So I remember this teacher saying to me, you have to draw it. Yeah. So I was drawing every day, like a home with hearts and sunshine and rainbow and my father, mother, and the four children. Like everybody with hearts opened up. Like I was like drawing that. And he told me to draw it with 5 colors. So I used this specific 5 colors. And I was like, nothing really changed, to be honest. And then when I was 9, my brother married somebody without the consent of my parents. What was in that time like normal to have the consent. He left the house, married a woman that we did not know who it was. It was all very secretive. And I had no idea what my brother was. Now, my brother was also my godfather, and I was very close to my oldest brother. And the thing was, I was like, okay, I'm going to draw that and that was like happening in August when all this went down. And I said, I'm going to start drawing that we are together for Christmas. So I start drawing Christmas paintings, like the Christmas tree with everybody and this woman. I had no idea who her name was even, like all around the Christmas tree. So I start drawing that from August every day. Yeah. And each time I was like, I see it happening. So I had no idea I was visualizing, but I was like, okay, I'm drawing it over and over and over again. And then I remember it was the 6th of December, what is in Europe we call St. Nicholas Day. So
Hmm.
it's like a different form of Santa Claus, right? And so when the St. Nicholas Day, you actually send gifts and sweets to the children. So I actually got a little gift from my oldest brother. He sent me 5 lollies, lollipops, right?
Hmm.
In exact 5 colors I was been drawing on. Yeah.
Wow.
And it was like violet, yellow, green, blue, and rose. I remember that. And I was like, oh my God, it's working. He's getting the message. Yeah. Now I had his address because it was in the back of so I was 9, I could already write. So I sent him, I said, I want you to come on the 23rd of December, literally at 11 o'clock in the morning, and come and speak to that. Yeah. So now I had several paintings to draw. So I had Christmas, and I was still drawing the happy family, and I created and I kind of drew that my father, my brother would give hands, and I would sit in the middle. My mom was not in the picture, and a clock with 11 o'clock. Yeah. So literally that day, 23rd of December, I told my father, you stay home. My brother is coming. Right. And he was like, nobody believed it. Right. Even my other siblings were like thinking I was totally crazy. But at 11 o'clock, nobody showed up. And I said, oh, he's on his way. I just could feel it. He's on his way. His train is delayed. And literally 11:20, knock on the door. There was my brother. So I put my father at one side of the table, like I draw him, my brother on the other side, me in the middle. I chased my mom out. I said, Mom, you're not in the painting, you know?
I love that. You're not in the painting. You can't stay here.
The picture. So after 15 minutes that we're talking, I said, guys, just shake hands. Like, so I kind of directed them. And on the next Christmas day, like on the 24th, everybody was there. And also my new sister-in-law that I adored from that moment on. She was such a sweetheart. And our family gathered. And that was probably the first time in my life that I experienced since I was 7, like drawing that in. Like as I was drawing it, I was drawing it in a way. That is actually, I never forget that evening. It was just a happy family moment. Yeah. So that's the first time I knew I could direct my future. Yeah, by visualizing. Now I had no idea about law of attraction or whatever that was. Later on, when I started studying quantum physics more, I started understanding there was a science behind because I send out certain energies, certain wave, and so on. But that's my first time I experienced the law of attraction, like at work through me. Yeah.
That's amazing. And I just think it's so incredible because even if you look at it from a broad place, you went into law and you were already kind of playing this mediator for your family in that situation. So it's like you've already had these certain gifts that you were tapping into
Yeah.
without necessarily
Yeah.
recognizing in that moment that, oh, this is a conscious thing that I'm doing. You were just already embodying that energy.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
I'm curious, in your perspective, what do you think most people misunderstand about the manifestation process today?
Well, one of the things that I came to be aware of when I started studying, Feng Shui at 31 in Malaysia with a grandmaster, the first thing he shared with me was something that hit home, and I've been telling that to everybody. So there are actually to the process of manifestation or attracting things in your life, there are 3 aspects. The first aspect is what we call the spiritual luck. So the spiritual luck is actually your soul, right? Your soul comes to this world, has already some talents, some
Gift.
lessons, some gifts, some decisions you made before you came in, like where you're born,
Your
what kind of
parents.
family. Like sometimes you're saying, well, this, I did not choose that, that experience, but you did, somehow you did, right? And you have some gifts, right? And you also have a connection, right? So you have a connection with your soul, with God, the universe, the creator, whatever you call that. And in certain cultures, they would call that karma or destiny or fate. Yeah. So he said, when we only focus on that, we only will manifest about 33.3%. So it's not 100%, but it's like 1/3. He said, then we come into this world and we become a human being, and then we get a mindset, we get a mind to work with, we get a body to work with, we get emotions to work with, a behavior, decisions that we're making, people we surround ourselves with, choices we make. That is what he called the human luck, what some people call human potential, right? So you got a potential when you came in. What do you do with that potential, right? Think of, for example, some people know the story of Susan Boyle, this famous singer from British Got Talent in her late 40s. She's coming forward and she looks very, uncomfortable on stage. But she says to people, I'm going to be one of the biggest singers in the world. And instead of staying with her talent in the shower, she took the chance to say, I'm going to be on a talent show. And she starts singing. And before she starts singing, people are always like, oh, what is going on? This is an interesting woman. But the moment she starts singing, so she made the choice to perform, the choice to come forward, to shine her light. Her light was already there. That was part of her talents, was her voice. But the moment she said yes, she used her human potential and she became world famous. That moment she opened her mouth, right? So a lot of people think it's manifestation is all in the mindset. Yeah, if I take actions, massive actions, I can get there. Now, what my Feng Shui Master said is only 1/3 also. So your mindset, and a lot of people say, oh, I had the right mindset, I took the right action, nothing is happening. Because it's possible they're not aligned in spirit, but it can also mean that they're losing the last part. And the last part is what we call the earth luck. And the earth luck is actually your environment, not the environment of people around you, because that's human energy, but literally your location. Your soul has taken on a human experience, but is expressing it in a certain location, your home, your work, where you meet people. And that is actually something we can direct. And that is also 33.3%. So when I look back at my life, I was very spiritual as a child already. I was praying, going to the mass every day. I mean, my connection with God was pretty solid, right? Human level, I mean, I tried to be the best as I could be before I was 15. There was a lot of negative things going on around me. And you could say, well, and I still got this accident, right? Perhaps people will say, well, perhaps that was part of your destiny to open up, but let's say it was still pretty unhappy to have that experience. When then I look at my environment where I was sleeping on the north side of the house. Everything around me was in colors that really don't fit me very well. So when you look deeper into the Feng Shui, it was really bad Feng Shui. I was sleeping the wrong direction for me. So I would say I call that your home is a vision board. The vision board around me was pretty dark energy. So when I moved to another space where the sun was shining, I painted it orange. I still paint things orange around me. Actually, I love that color. It was like I put other paintings out. I was sleeping a good direction. Everything was in a different field. And so my vision board around me was different. And that's why suddenly I picked up that last part, the 33.3%, that most people sometimes feel, but they don't know how to deal with it. Like you can go to a place and you're like, oh, I love it here, but you have no idea why. And then you go to other place, you're like, I'm never coming back here. It could be a restaurant where the food is amazing, but there's something off in the energy. We all have that instinctive feeling, right? From people, but also from places. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And think about there are places in the world that people every year draw millions of people. Why is that? And then other places, nobody goes there, right? So why is that? Because there's an energy field there. So when I then started understanding, that there's something called Feng Shui, an energy system that's actually connected with that earth luck, and that for thousands of years the Asian community, and especially starting from China, became more aware of how energy flows. And you can compare it with Feng Shui means wind and water, but it's actually about the flow of energy. And so you can compare it with like acupuncture, Tai Chi, Qigong, where you're focusing on the energy field of your body, or even yoga, right? So you create more energy in your body. But what if the space around you, who is also like a body in a way, it's a structure, a building, has also its own energy, and you're sleeping, living, working in the last years, a lot of people working in that same space, that what is around you is affecting you non-stop, is affecting you subconsciously, non-stop. And I always say, who will win? You are that bigger building. You are in the bigger body, so that bigger body will influence you without you knowing. And that's why people love certain areas of their home and they don't like us other areas of their home, because they feel something is off. But what if they could redirect that energy? Yeah, what if they could make it, like I said in my latest book, Your Home is a Vision Board, you can actually make a different frequency by using these ancient techniques of feng shui.
Wow. It's funny because you just hit like three of my questions right off the bat, which was in the simplest terms, what is feng shui? But
Yeah,
I'm curious now. I want this to be very tangible for the woman who's listening
yeah,
right now.
of
So,
course.
what's one shift they could make in their environment today to create movement if they feel like they've been stagnant or
Yes.
just not seeing the results in their life?
Well, the first thing, I mean, there's like three major steps I would definitely use right away. First of all, I want you to become aware of your home. So I want you to walk into your home, your apartment, with eyes. And I said, think about you have the eyes of God, right? And you would walk in. And like, what do you see? Like, your home is a vision board, right? What have you been reflecting out in your space? And what has your space been reflecting to you? Could be that you're single and you look around and you see all single items and images of single people. Yeah. You're actually saying, well, I'm okay with being single. Perhaps you're walking around and you see a lot of clutter, things that are not organized. You're actually picking this up, and your mind and your feelings will become more cluttered in a way, more chaotic. Yeah. It could be that you come in and you feel that as you're walking into the living room or into your office, that you're sitting with your back to the door, right? And you don't see the flow coming in. If somebody would walk in, even if nobody walks into your space, but if somebody would walk in, can you see them? Yeah. So we call
Mm.
that the power position. So I don't know where you're sitting right now, Anita, but you have a wall behind you,
I
right?
do.
So you see the door.
I do. I see the door to my left, and then I actually have a nice window on the right.
Correct. So you have in your peripheral view, you can see people coming towards you, right? But how
Mhm.
many women right now are sitting in their office with their desk facing a wall or facing a window? And when they do that, they're actually hitting a wall, and they don't see people coming in. So when people come in, they have to turn around. They feel like not, in contact and connection. So the first thing I always say to people, start taking your desk in such a way, or anytime you meet people, make sure you're earlier there than the other people, face the door, see people coming, so welcome them in your life. Yeah, it's a very simple thing. Yeah, any meeting you have, but also in your dining room table, you're sitting, can you see people walking in to have dinner with you? And your sofa, don't sit with your back to the door of the entrance. Make sure that if somebody comes in, they can come and see you. So that shifts something very profound. And what we have seen, it actually changes even your brain waves. So when people sit with their back to the door, they actually create a faster beta brain waves. That means they will be more in fear, more in less concentration, They were thinking more in the past and thinking more about problems. So if they face the right direction and they see people coming towards them, they create faster and more alpha brainwaves. And in alpha brainwaves, you're more solution driven, you're more happy, you're more optimistic, you're like seeing the future, literally, energetically. So just that little simple trick. It's not a trick, but think about all the top people in the world, if it's CEOs or a president of the United States, they're sitting in the room where they can see the door. Yeah. And so this is called a power position. Say to the women, become the queen of your space. Yeah. And when you do that, something shifts. And I've seen people, their lives shifting just by practicing this. Second thing, definitely start decluttering. Yeah. Let go of things. We hold on to too many things, right? And so it's not about, does that give me love? Because a lot of things give you love, right? Or give you joy. But can I use this in the next year? Will I need this in the next year? Right? And some things you don't need, but it's a treasure and you want to keep it, that's fine. But let go of things at least 10 to 20%, because then you create energetically a space within yourself, within your home, to attract new energy.
Wow. It's interesting because so I live in a family where they grew up very immigrant. So when when it comes to the topic of releasing items, a lot of times it's like, no, you never know when you'll need it. And so it's like they want to keep it. And I've seen things that are in their closets that are probably older than I am. And so I'll be like, the store's still got some. And so it's like, and then my mom always frequently has this joke of like, if I throw it out 6 months later, that's when the time will come up that I need it. And I'm like, is that really true? Or are we just creating an emotional attachment to the
It is.
possibility?
Yeah, but it's also scarcity mindset, right?
Yeah.
So you're so scared, it's based on survival, right? So you're like, if I let it go and then I need it, well, if you think in an abundance mindset, you will actually then say, well, I will have the money or somebody will loan it or I will find it somewhere when I need it. And I remember my mom had the same situation. So I remember going into her shoe closet and she had shoes from like 30 years ago. Now, when she was 30 years younger, she was much, bigger, and she had slimmed down quite a bit, probably from all the stress from her household. And so the shoes were just too wide for her. She could never wear them again. And I said, Mom, why are you holding on? But you never know, it becomes fashion again. And I said to her, okay, but let's look at these shoes. I mean, they're really old. Right now, I would sell them on a vintage app, but that didn't exist at that time, right? So
Yeah.
I could have said, oh, you could have kept them, but now they would have been like 60 years old, right? So that would be too long. But the whole time is that we are scared, right? And that's our scarcity mentality. And but what I've learned is if you let go of things and you give it to a goodwill, or you give it to friends that are in need, or you even make money out of it, why not, right? On eBay or vintage apps, at least there's the value that it has. You bless somebody else with that value. Yeah, and I do believe the God universe will always give something back towards you, right?
Absolutely.
So when I feel stuck, and it doesn't happen a lot, but when I'm like feeling a little bit like the first thing I'm doing, I'm opening up all the drawers, reorganize things, and then I remember finding an envelope with $1,000 in cash, and I can't remember I ever had that cash stuck there. But I've always made the decision when I find money, it's going to charity, right? So because I didn't need it apparently, because I would not have stacked it there, right? So, but just creating a flow of energy by doing this is very helpful, right?
Yeah.
And just trusting also that you won't be in survival, that you will always have enough to come back to you, even if that's something you can buy later yourself or somebody gives it to you or whatever it is.
Beautiful. So you've said that feng shui is like acupuncture. Can you explain that more deeply?
Yeah. So one of the things that when we look at classical feng shui, we know that based on your birthday and your gender, you actually have certain directions that work for you stronger because feng shui is based on the wind energy, right? So compass wind directions. So people can actually download for free my app, Marie Diamond app, yeah?
Hmm.
And then when they're there, they will be asked to put in their full birthday and their gender. It's connect with your original DNA, yeah? And it creates a calculation, yeah? And so once they have done that, they will actually get a number, an energy number, and they will get 4 directions that are strong for them. And so there's a direction where the wind comes in for success and money, one for health and well being, one for relationships, and one for inspiration and wisdom. So, Anita, I don't know if you know your number already.
I do not. I was actually planning to download the app after
Okay,
this
can I do
conversation.
this for you quickly? Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, can I know your full birthday, please?
January 24, 95.
January 24, 95. You're so young. Oh my God. So you're female. Calculate. So I will calculating. And it comes up with your number 9. You're a healer. Yeah. So
Okay.
your soul has come in to heal energy, to heal people. Yeah. And you probably are healing a lot of people through your podcast. Yeah. Doesn't mean that you have to be a doctor. It can be in many levels. But the most important thing is that your success direction is east. Yeah.
East.
So when you then will have downloaded the app, you will get a compass, and your compass will indicate that your success direction is east. Now, mine is southwest. Yeah. Okay. So what you then do, you hold the app in the center of the room you want to feng shui. And for example, my success direction is southwest, and it's actually behind me. Yeah. So what did I put there? I put all my best-selling books. I put awards there. Like I have the image of The Secret there. So I put some images there that resonate with me about my success. If you don't have these books, then look for, other items that for you feel successful. So that is your first thing, what you do. You also declutter that area because you cannot have any clutter in your success direction because otherwise you stop the flow of money and career. So in your
Mhm.
case, you need to put a beautiful logo of Arise with Anita. Yeah? Right?
I've thought about that. That's funny that you say that.
You put that in your success direction. You could even put like an image of you, like some of the platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts that you're on. You can put some of that, and you can even put your vision board there, or a journal that you have, or like a mic, or any certifications that you have that you want to place there. So anything that you feel works for you. Always add some gold looking items because gold stands for abundance. Yeah. So that works for everyone. Then you will see you have a relationship direction. For you, that is north. For somebody else, it can be southeast, northeast, depending. And then you take the compass, and it's a compass, so it doesn't matter which direction you're looking for, it will always show the right directions. For you, north is your relationship direction. So for you, Anita, I would suggest that to all podcast hosts, put a globe in your relationship direction. Because as a podcast, you're not focused just on the USA. Anyone in the world can listen to you. Yeah. You have a global platform. Podcasts
Yeah.
are not dedicated to one country, right? So
Yeah.
put that there. But that can also be that you put, for example, in your living room, a picture of you with your family, in the bedroom, you and your partner. In your office, focus more on professional connections for sure, right? So, and this is how you actually use feng shui as acupuncture based on your own energy. And in the latest book, Your Home is a Vision Board, it helps you to go step by step. But it's a free app, so you can use the app to start.
Beautiful. So, what's a common mistake you see in almost every home?
One of the common mistakes I've seen is that people hold on to things that are broken. Yeah. So, like, it could be broken material, broken appliances, broken clocks, anything that is broken and cannot be repaired. Make sure it's not visible because otherwise you give subconsciously an image of something is stagnant, something is broken. So that's the first thing. The second thing, let go of anything that is not creating vitality. So that could be dead plants, potpourri, for example. Um, if you have a fake plant and it looks very real, your brain will see it as real. But also any plants that are torn, spiky leaves, because they create like a sharchi, we call that a sharp energy, yeah,
Hmm.
towards, especially where you're sitting close to you. You cannot have plants that have sharp energy. Yeah. So, but also sharp energy even in your kitchen. Like you don't want to have a block with your knives out or just knives around you. So put that away in a closet. So that is something I definitely would suggest to change, where I see a lot of people could improve their home.
Beautiful. And I love bringing this back to the inner world because you speak that the outer cannot shift without it. So you've often spoken about forgiveness being an important factor in manifestation. Why
Yeah.
is that in your perspective?
Well, as we are doing some space clearing in Feng Shui, we also need to clear some of the emotions and the pain that we're holding on to. And for me, forgiveness has been a very powerful part of my release of my situation with my father. And I was able to forgive my father the night before he died in person. Well, we don't always have the chance to do that. But I do know if I would not have forgiven him for everything he did, put me through, and also forgive myself for holding on to that pain, because we can forgive sometimes people, but we also forgive ourselves. Sometimes we feel guilty about things. We're like, why did I make that choice? Why did I stay so long in that relationship? Why did I stay so long in this job? Forgive yourself for that. You know, it is what it is at that point. You cannot go back in time. But I've seen if you do a forgiveness process, and that's why in the book I talk about the forgiveness letter for people to write a forgiveness letter to themselves. I have seen so much healing that can happen from it when you do that. I would not be who I am now if I would not have forgiven my father that put me through so much. I would not have the compassion, the strength of soul and heart and kindness if I would have stayed stuck in that anger that I felt towards him. Yeah. And I would have become probably sick, right? Or I would have attracted perhaps a partner that would have been as violent as my father. I don't know. I don't know what would have happened because I had a better
It didn't
life.
work.
It worked out, but we don't always know, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a resonance field. If we have certain anger around us or in us, it's a field, and we start attracting things similar towards that. So as we are decluttering and organizing the physical, it's also important for us to let go of things that we've been holding on for a long time. We cannot really move forward in a better way if we are still in that field of anger and emotional pain.
Beautiful answer. And it's funny that you brought that up because for me, I know that one of my key components was having to do a lot of forgiveness work with my father as well. And
Yeah.
so I could constantly see, and the reason I had been very conscious, luckily, to seek out this work at such a young age was because I recognized, I guess, had an intuitive knowing of
Yeah.
if I don't clear what's here, I'm going to manifest a guy who's going to repeat those same patterns. And I was like, I don't think I'm up for that challenge of dealing
Yeah.
with someone who's going to bring up that abandonment wound and whatnot. And
Yeah.
so, one thing I had realized though is I got to a point where I had reached out to him and I did a lot of even like soul to soul work. And
Mm.
while the relationship isn't perfect or whatnot, at least I have conscious ability to be like, I've forgiven you. Whatever happens hereafter, at least I know in my soul I have peace with this relationship.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
that is
It's such
so
a gift. gift. It's such a gift that you were able to do that. And I can imagine by you doing this, you can now make a difference for women. I don't think you would have had that ability to listen, to be present for the women that are and the men that are out there if you would not have done that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, as we wrap, what is next for you? What are you currently calling in or expanding into?
Yeah. So there are a few things, right? I'm working right now on a book that is called Beyond Your Wildest Dreams, and a movie and a TV series where I feel like people need to be open to dream again bigger. Yeah. Um, so that is a project that we're unfolding. We're also opening up Asia in the coming year. So I have a lot of students there, but I never really went there to teach and to travel too much. So that's a big thing for me in the next year. So I'm going to Japan and Hong Kong and teaching in certain places. So it's very interesting. It's like bringing feng shui back to the
Already.
Asian culture, but from a different perspective, seeing it more from the neuroscientific and quantum perspective. Not so much of the superstition experience, because a lot of um, feng shui is considered in Asia like they have to do this or misfortune will happen. I don't think that way. It's only to help you to create the most beautiful life possible for you. And so that shift is going to be interesting, and things are already starting to unfold. I just got an interview in one of the biggest Chinese magazines talking about the way I perceive feng shui. So it will be interesting. And also because feng shui masters in Asian culture, they are very dedicated to certain wealthy families, and they don't really teach the information to the common people. Like we are common people. I learned from my grandmaster that was like the first that shared it with, beyond certain families and certain communities. And for me, it's always been like if everybody would know a little bit of feng shui, their life would manifest with much more ease and much more grace. And so for me, it's always been like bringing it to as much people as possible, even if they do small little steps, right? And so that same attitude I have going into Asia. So it will be an interesting journey.
How exciting. I'm so excited about the book and the movie and everything you're doing. It's incredible to see you still wanting to keep going and keep this mission going, even though we already know you've already hit that 500 million.
Yeah, I
But
did,
the
but
desire is still there.
I, the fire is even more than ever, to be honest, because I have seen now, the results already, and I have so much feedback from people worldwide that, their life have become better, their relationship with their parents, with their partner, with their children has improved, their career has improved, their health, their well-being. I mean, I have now, just myself in my own database, I have more than 2 million online students. So that have gone through courses. And that's not just the impact just from podcasts, but just really courses already. And so getting every day that feedback, I know that, the fire in me is even stronger than ever, even after 32 years being public as a teacher. Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, as we end, I'm going to shift gears for a moment. I always end with a quick fire round. So
Oh,
think 1 hour, one word, one sentence for each. Are you ready for me?
of course.
A book that changed your life,
Good question. Um, I would say for me it was the Bible because I read it probably 10 times front to back, back to front, because I felt there was like some spirituality that resonated with me. Yeah. As a child, I would say the Bible. Yeah. Now I would say something else for sure. Yeah.
a word that describes your current season,
My current season. Oh, summer. Yeah. I feel like I'm in summer. Yeah.
a daily non-negotiable that fuels your power.
A non-negotiable. It fuels my power. I would say silence. Yeah. I need a lot of silence time. Yeah.
White space. I love
That's,
that.
yeah.
A song that instantly lifts your mood.
Can you repeat that question? I didn't hear it correctly.
A song that instantly lifts your mood.
Oh, Sweet Caroline from Neil Diamond.
Best advice you've ever received in a single sentence.
Um, best advice, I just would have said, trust your intuition. Yeah.
Beautiful. And lastly, what is one thing you want women to stop apologizing for?
Oh, themselves. Yeah. They're always apologizing about themselves. Like, I'm sorry about this, it's about this, about myself. Stop apologizing about you. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, Marie, this conversation definitely felt like a recalibration, a reminder that manifestation isn't just about how we think, it's about what we feel and what we hold, and even the spaces that we exist inside of. And for anyone listening, if something landed for you today, if something softened or opened, that's an awareness, and awareness is where everything begins. Marie, thank you again for your wisdom, your presence, and the way you guide people back into alignment, not just within themselves, but within their entire world and always. And as always, this is your reminder you don't have to force your reality to change, you get to create alignment with it. I'll see you in the next episode.